Welcome to the first episode of the special series NEUVC, hosted by Freddie, an analyst at Isomer Capital, and Linda, an associate at Calma Ventures. Today, we have Martin Krag with us. Martin is a partner, I think we can say it now, at byFounders, a seed fund looking to back the best tech founders in the new Nordics. We spoke to Martin to hear how he rose to partner in 4 years, the firm culture and coaching that encouraged him to do so, and of course, his own secret source of excellence. Martin, thank you so much for being on the show. We're super excited to have you with us. Please introduce yourself. Who are you? Why are you here? What's your superpower?
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. So my name is Martin. I'm an investor at an early stage fund called byFounders. We are investing in and focused in what we call the new Nordics, which is like the Nordics and Baltics in our mind. And we're a sector agnostic fund, mainly do software investing. But we have what we call an impact mandate as well, meaning we are able to also invest in a bit more frontier tech stuff that is shaping the world around us. So that can be like health tech and climate tech and biotech, tech bio, whatever you want to call it. So a bit of both atoms and bits on the fund side. And I think what makes byFounders stand out a bit is the whole community aspect of building the fund that we have done. So we have what we call a collective of founders from most of the region's unicorns. So that's like Clio, Kahoot, Zendesk, Pipedrive, Public, etc. Plus a ton of operators from like US companies like Uber, Calm, DeepMind, Airbnb. And all of these people have gathered in the fund and have convinced them to also invest in the fund on fairly good terms, meaning they don't pay any fees, they don't pay any carry to the fund. And in exchange for that very good deal, they have agreed to also help our portfolio companies when we invest and also help us as investors when we look at portfolio company or potential investments. So I think we have succeeded in creating some sort of incentive alignment around a broader community of people. And when we started the fund like 5 years ago, there was a large gap in the market, at least in Denmark, where we are based and also in a lot of the rest of the Nordics and Baltics. And there was a large gap in the market for like founder-focused venture funds that also had a global like both network and global outlook. So I think we were one of the first funds to actually, being raised by former entrepreneurs and former founders with a heavy focus on operators and community. I know many funds nowadays have like some sort of operator network or collective or whatever you want to call it. But I think we were one of the first, at least in our region, to like formalize it to the extent we did and trying to align incentive all the way around. So that's something we're pretty proud of having been able to accomplish. And we're now investing out of our second fund of 110 million euros. Personally, I joined also close to 4 or 5 years ago. Before joining, I was both a founder and an operator, and in both cases in bootstrap companies, so not in a venture-backed startup. And prior to that, I spent 4 or 5 years as a professional poker player. Bit of my background there, but I joined as 2018, I think it was, as one of the first employees, and we were in the middle of fundraising for Fund 1 then, with 2 founding partners who had not any background in VC. They were like founders and to an extent angel investors, but no VC experience. So it was kind of a startup when I joined, and we had like, balls dropping left and right and needing someone to pick it up and run with it. And that was my like first role there. So the founding partners knew what they wanted to do, but maybe less of an idea how to get there. So that's what I helped with. I didn't have any background in VC either, but from tech at least. So I was a quick learner and helped formalize a lot of the processes and, around the whole setup as a first time fund. So yeah, that's it. And now I've been there for 4 or 5 years, having led 8 or 9 investments and sit on boards on a handful of companies. And so yeah, that's me.
You've sneaked around the superpower question very skillfully, Martin.
Yes, that was also a very top question, a very extensive list of things I could either be or wanting to be or having a skill set of. But I think maybe two things stood out. It's on the complexity busting side, which is, I think of it as a bit of a like signal to noise understanding. I think that's very, very useful in VC. We get a ton of information. There's all things going on. You need to be able to dive into the core and understand that fairly quickly. And the other one is around the decisiveness. I think also as VCs, you need to be decisive. You need to be able to form decisions based on incomplete information. And you need to have a mentality of, leaning in when you're 60, 70, 80% sure of something and just like go with it and make a decision, right? So you don't have the luxury of getting to 100% full information and knowledge and etc. So those were two that stood out at least.
I think it's pretty rare that at the pre-seed seed you ever get to that sort of 100% on every single topic, right? But we have a number of questions we want to jump into, but there was one that sort of stood out from your intro that I'd love to know, which was you at byFounders had this amazing collective. How have you leveraged them for your own benefit and your own learning as you sort of have been at the early years, especially?
I think we have, leveraged them in all sorts of ways. First and foremost, is they are like operators and founders. So they have been through the hoops, right? And they have, taken the journey. Some of them are like 1 or 2 stages ahead, and some of them are like unicorn founders, right? So they have seen the whole spectrum of what it is to start a company from scratch, and they can help, us when looking at companies, but even more so, they are helping our companies and that we have invested in. And
sure, but sorry, I was sort of meaning is, as Martin the analyst or Martin the associate, how did you personally?
I used them to understand the spaces and sectors that I was not, that sort of deep into. And I used them for understanding what does great look like. I think that's one of the first things that you're trying to calibrate towards when you're new in VC. You can easily get carried away by great ideas and great people you meet, but eventually you need to decide on a very small subset of people and companies you can invest in, and calibrating towards what is not just good, but actually great is something that's very hard to do. And it's almost basically like a numbers game that you need to see enough good people to understand okay, this was number 100 I saw, and this founder is actually not just good, but great, right? So they helped me calibrate towards that, because it's easy to put them up and say they were, and also actually the other way around, you can also have a ton of questions is this really a founder who can go all the way, right? And then you can calibrate towards some of the unicorn founders, and when you talk to them, they are very open about all the mistakes they've made. They're very open about what they don't understand and what they're not good at. So it also gives you an image that you don't need the founder you are wanting to invest in or looking to invest in to have the full package. It's okay to have blind spots, and you can still, go for.
You've touched upon the fact that when you joined byFounders, it was very fresh as a fund and you were very fresh as an investor. And now, 4 or 5 years has gone by. So maybe the first question being, how has your role changed over time? And you've done an incredible quick progression through the ranks in byFounders as well. So are you just superhuman and able to learn super quickly what the rest of us are trying to do in 15 years? So what's the secret in that?
I think I have the luxury of having joined a very, very nice team where there is not really a hierarchy. When I joined, it was really, what you were able to pick up and run with, you had the opportunity to do so. We have built the team and the firm around the sentiment of letting the best ideas win, and a very proactive culture. So if you join byFounders and are a self-starter and have a great idea and ability to execute on it, there's no one who's gonna, tell you not to. So I took that upon me very early because, as one of the first employees, there was all sorts of stuff dropping into my lap, and something I also had to pick up myself. I took that upon me and was very heavily involved in doing both the strategic direction early on and the portfolio construction and investment strategy and processes and all that sort of things. So I think maybe my responsibility has, I've taken them upon myself, but also they have increased incrementally over the years. So it's kind of just feel naturally to gradually move into this role, right?
Maybe the core kind of skills, what do you think kind of led you to that? Is that quick learning? You kind of talked about that earlier. Is it adaptability? Is it, what is it that you think has been incremental in that?
I think curiosity and the ability to learn quick and the willingness to do so. So as I said, no one was a trained VC at the firm. So, we had to pick up pieces from our network. We had to read a lot and listening to podcasts, blogs, books, all sorts of studying the whole history and the industry, right? And then getting up to speed. and then combine that with the willingness to take initiative, and a setup where it's actually we recommended that you take initiative, then I think if you have the willingness and the ability to do it, then you can move pretty far with at byFounders at least.
byFounders is almost a startup in itself, a 5-6-year-old startup. And then you touch on the sort of the learnings that all these sort of founders in your collective have. Of course there are, mistakes on the way, but what are those big learnings of being part of a core founding team in a VC that you've picked up over the last 5 years?
I think we have made some mistakes in not, we had a ethos of testing stuff out and trying a lot of stuff, but in that way you can also end up, being spread too thin and not having the core focus of this is what we actually do, this is what we want to be extremely good at, and then we want to be like okay at other stuff, and then there is some stuff we do not want to touch on at all, right? So you can easily, and I think that maybe it goes throughout venture, you can always spend more time on almost anything, and whether that's investments or vertical thesis or events and networking, and there's like ample opportunities to fill your calendars with all sorts of things, right? So getting to the focus and being like, this is what we do, this is our core, and this is what we don't do. I think we took some time to get there, but increasingly getting better at it, at least I hope to.
I think that's a really good point though on finding out where you need to be spending your time. As an analyst and associate, you could book up every night of your week with some kind of event or drinks, or one of your key superpowers is being decisive. So how are you decisive in what you choose to focus and spend your time in?
It's I don't know how I'm like explicit about it, but I think to me it comes sort of naturally, and I think you can get caught up in the whole networking setup, and we have people at our fund who are extremely good at that, and I use that as their main source of investment opportunities and startups. And then we have other people who are good at being more proactive and diving into verticals, etc. So for me, I've been more on the latter side, I think, and being more proactive and hearing around companies and who's out there rather than doing VC calls back to back. But I think it's very much up to it's not like a winning recipe one or the other. I think there are good opportunities in both ways of working. I try to focus very much on also the boards that I am on, and the companies that I work with. They come first, and I tend to spend a lot of time with them, and that naturally means that I have a fixed set of hours I could use on the networking and events, etc. So it's always a trade-off, and I'm not claiming that I can always make the right choices there, but I try to think of it as at least we have a finite amount of time, and bigger impact on some stuff and less impact on other stuff.
How would you define the role of a partner now, kind of going through the ranks differently? So, did you realize that you were ready for a partnership role, and then there was like a specific, if you do this, you become one? Was it more of a progression where it was kind of agreed with the current partners that, hey, it seems like now you're ready to take the leap? So how, yourself, how did you realize that? How did the kind of the partnership realize it? And then what did you learn now looking back? What could have you done differently? Or what is there to kind of give as advice to others?
So I think, at least for me personally, it has sort of felt like a partnership for many years, given the responsibilities and the tasks that I have taken on me and being getting from the team. So with us, we don't have that formal structure. There is a partner that needs to, be on the second call with a founder, etc. It's very, very fluid with us. And we have actually, young people who could come in and actually lead deals. And when you're able to do that, you also get a shorter time to prove yourself. And that's a benefit with byFounders, I think, and a benefit that I have enjoyed. So having been able to lead some good investments and being a good partner to the founders that we have invested in has moved the needle, I think. But it's something that have happened like incrementally, I think, with us, and we have had a discussion back and forth for a long time that this is the direction it was going in. And now afterwards, we have actually been more formal about building out a whole like career development plan at byFounders, from like analysts to associates, investment managers, principals, this is what your responsibilities look like. This is how long we expect you to be in this role. This is what you need to do to progress to the next one, etc. So that was definitely not something we had when I joined. So it was very much like, I don't know, choose your own title and work on whatever we have, that sort of thing. But now we have been way, way more formalized and structured around building the team. And I think it's super helpful for the people coming in after me, at least. Now they have like line of sight of what it means to work at byFounders, what does it mean to work in this role, and what are more like midterm and long-term objectives and aspirations here.
So you have clearly defined roles now, something you didn't have back when you started. And so that helps all your new hires who come in and join. How are you thinking about, it will be their experience at byFounders will be very different to yours. Mm. How are you thinking about how you deliver your training to them?
We are very explicit about, first when they come in, one of the first things we do if they are new to the industry is like sit them down and trying to align on both like their short and midterm aspirations, but also what does it mean to be a VC? What does it mean to be in venture? And what are some of the mindset that you need to adopt to actually get into that mindset for an entry level hire that is new to the industry? So we try to pull forward the learning curves by calibrate their thinking around this like outlier nature of venture, because it's easier when I think from the outside, venture can look quite a bit different to what it is on the inside. And that's always nice to like calibrate people when they come in and help them a lot. And I think that's something we have worked quite hard on to be better at, and something that helps our new hires very, very much. So it's everything from like, thinking about the outlier nature, touching on the math behind the venture model and the portfolio construction. What are the companies that we're looking for? How should they actually progress over a short period of time to be able to be these outlier nature companies that we invest in? And that's very different from when you look at the industry from the outside. You come in and you just want to like invest in startups, and we go after a very narrow subset of these startups. So calibrating new hires to that is something very important for us. And after that, we are very, we do like weekly one-on-one. 2-3 times a year, we are having performance reviews and trying to understand where they want to go in the future. And we have examples of joiners who would like to go to a portfolio company in 1-2 years from after they're joining. We try to already map that possibility out for them early on and trying to figure out where they're strongest and where they can help out portfolio companies, where they have their interest. And some are very adamant that they want to be like in venture for 10 years and even further. And then we try to, to see how we can make that happen and put them on that trajectory. But I think it's very much like setting the expectations and understanding each other's like long-term aspirations is very helpful. So just being transparent around it is something that helps a lot. And it's one of our core values at byFounders, both in terms of internally and externally. So that's something we spend quite a bit of time on.
Maybe a bit more of a philosophy related question. I don't know if you'll have an answer to this.
Oh no.
I think many VCs struggle to kind of promote people and have this good pipeline of people coming up to firms, and those few then have succeeded in that. And your experience of working with other funds and seeing kind of other people in the industry, why do you think that is? What are the kind of core things in the VC industry that, is it the wrong hiring? Are we targeting the wrong people? Is it that the VC industry as a whole has some strategical disadvantages of promotion? Is it that, we're not allocating enough time of it? What is your take on it?
I think there are numerous reasons for it. One is, of course, like on actually, generational shifts in VCs and in VC, and you're giving up a piece of the pie that you have earned or you feel entitled to. Maybe you are entitled to it, right? So that's at least like a high level incentive structured thing. And then there's another aspect of I think VC maybe not now, but at least earlier, kind of a cottage industry with, a very top-down approach, very, few folks and that's all you needed. Now it's becoming way more professionalized. So you have like whole teams, and you kind of need that career progression to be able to get the best people and having the best people to stay, because otherwise they're going to be, out the door fairly quickly. And then you have to start over. And, as a fund who actually want to build like not just a fund, but a firm, we also spend a ton of time with people and the culture and that sort of thing. So you definitely need to be able to give new hires a line of sight of what can my future at this fund look like in 2, 3, maybe 7, 10 years. I'm not saying everyone who joins will be on the partner track, but it's definitely a possibility at byFounder to come on the partner track as a new joiner if you're putting in the work and you're good at what you do.
Yeah, it's almost like you still need to be an outlier within byFounders. You still got to be the best in byFounders to make it to the top. So sticking on that theme of new joiners, what do you hope your analysts and associates come to you with? What would you advise those young professionals in the industry to come to the partnership and ask around progression?
That's a good question. I don't think I want them to come and ask anything. I think we try to be very, as I said, transparent, right? What do people want and what do they want to achieve? I think we also transparent, and as you said, we want to see outlier performance. That doesn't mean you need to like make all the right investments and never do a wrong one. Definitely not. Maybe even the contrary. But we need, some sort of evidence of you thinking outside the box and not being like one in 100, one of many, but being one of 100 instead. I think we apply the same logic to the investments we make to the people that we hire and keep it. But yeah, I'm very proud of the team so far. So I think we're doing something right.
Obviously, you have a great plethora of people at byFounders. People have been progressing in different roles across the board, and obviously yourself to partnership. But ultimately, I think the responsibility still relies on the partners. So do you think it's up to the youngsters to really make enough of an effort to get that trust from the partners to make these decisions on investments? Or is it ultimately still on the partners to kind of guide and be the final kind of, gate to get through? So how does that transfer over time?
Yeah. So we have a framework of at least when it comes to investment decision to have, at least a partner being positive, being a yes. It doesn't mean it needs to be a strong yes, but we need a strong yes from somewhere else in the team, right? And that can be from one of the other team members, an investment manager or an associate. So that's essentially the framework. We can definitely make an investment happen if there are like 2 or 3 partners that are against, but one partner that is for. So we try to not, cultivating a consensus investment decision. So, and I think some of our, best performing companies, I think we were the most, disagreed on. And I think that's very common. So for us, it can be like also, associates and IMs taking a deal from start to almost to finish. Sometimes we also, throw people out on the deep water and having them trying to negotiate terms and being like the front there. And then we in the partnership support as much as we can, but having other people lead and learning by that. I think we are actually like cultivating the rate of learning and making the rate of learning way faster by doing that. And also we get to see actually who has it in them to go forward in VC if that's what they want to do.
Let's talk mistakes. What are those common mistakes? What do you see as the avoidable mistakes that the junior team traditionally make?
I think one that I definitely made myself is, and one that I see again and again, is that I touched upon before with, not fully being understand what great actually is, but being overly, optimistic. Not optimistic is not the right word, but being like, when you join a fund, you want to make an investment, right? And you desperately look to make that investment, and you find something and you kind of fit it into the box, and it confirms all your thesis or works or whatever, and then you just wanted to get it done, right? So I think like the first 1-2 investments that especially that I made and maybe that also other people make are, when you look back at them like a few years after, you maybe like, I could probably have, sat on my hands a bit and getting up to speed and understanding the whole industry of not just venture, but also the startup industry, etc. a bit more, and met more people, and, getting the flywheel going before being so pushy about buying the money.
Just so I'm sort of understanding the takeaway from this point, it's almost sort of being a little bit more patient and sort of less rushing into it.
Yes, I think that's the takeaway. Obviously, we also have examples of the opposite, where you have someone coming in and their first investment is just like sort of a home run, and maybe that's luck, maybe a skill, we don't know. But I think in general, calibrating and getting up to cruising altitude before you make decisions is always a good idea.
Do you think that having been a founder before gave you an advantage, maybe getting that what does great look like faster? Obviously, you've kind of touched upon the other operators that you kind of work with as well, but Sifted has been releasing articles about, we need more operators, we need more people from the industry becoming investors. So, does that help?
I don't think it helped me. As I said, I was mainly in bootstrap startups. So there's like a far, between running a small shop that is never meant to raise VC dollars, it's never meant to be an outlier, and then raising VC dollars and trying to build that massive company, like a big step change between the two. So it did not help me. I think what helped me more was actually my past as a poker player, because that's fairly easily translatable to a lot of the decision making you're making in as an investor. But on the whole debate between founders and operators, etc., I think I think it helps to have been in the shoes of starting something from scratch. You have empathy. I also think maybe you can, over index a bit on your own experience. So it's always good to, it's the founder who is in the driving seat of the company. And that's always the case with us. We're not there to run your company, even though we have a lot of great people great at running companies, but we're not there to do it. So we can give our perspective, and we can compare notes of what we have been through and what our, people in the collective have been through. But ultimately it comes down to the founder. But on a mindset, I think it makes it easier to empathize and just that, but maybe not that much in the day to day. I think it's for the founder to forge their own journey, and if they are to build an outlier company, it's not like there is a recipe for building an outlier company, but then everyone would be able to do so, right? So they need to also do contrarian things and forge new ground when building a new company.
But do you think you do look at companies slightly differently because of your background? Or, obviously, I think at byFounders, you all have very similar backgrounds in the sense of some sort of operational experience in almost all of you, I think. But does it change the way that you approach it versus, I don't know, comparatively to maybe other investors that you've spoken to who maybe come from different backgrounds?
I think we sometimes can be caught up in dreaming a lot with the founders, and we can see the possibilities and be like, this is an amazing idea. If I were the founder, I would do this and this. And then maybe even to the extent that sometimes you dream up a company that is definitely not in the vein of what the founder wants to build, but you have some image in your head of what this can be. And then we sort of mismatch from the start there. So that's something we actually tend to also when people are pitching new companies to us, or internally, when associates and the IMs are pitching companies to us, we are very aware of, is this the founder's vision, or is this is you're talking on behalf of the founder? And we have some mismatches there. So that's one thing at least we are aware of.
I sort of want to ask the same question, but kind of a different way, which is people are getting into VC a lot younger. My and Linda's, experience before being in this world was pretty short, especially in my case, because there's, frankly, you've got a lot of time. Is there a benefit to, taking yourself out of the VC world, getting that operational founder experience, or even elsewhere? How do you think about diversifying your own experience to bring back into VC?
Yeah. That's a very good question, and it's something we have been debating a lot, and that's why we also with new joiners are trying to actively push the idea of having them joining a portfolio company for maybe 1 year, 2 years, and then opening the door for them coming back at byFounders. And I think that's extremely helpful, especially if you don't have any other experiences outside of, coming out of your journey, and maybe you've done a few internships here and there. And I think some can do without, but I don't think it hurts at all. I think that's on the contrary. I think it provides a very good insight into how the startup looks from the inside, and even to the extent that some of us as investors we have people who have went to portfolio companies and come back, and they have way better insight into intricacies of how the founders are running the company that we have as outsiders, even though we are on the board maybe, but on the day-to-day stuff. So it's very, very helpful on that end.
We touched on this point of being patient and building up an understanding of what great looks like. But for you, what do you think in terms of a young professional's career? What does success look like at each stage in the VC journey?
That's a very subjective question, I think. I think a lot of people can, be caught up in taking the well-trodden path because that's what you're supposed to do, sort of. So you have seen over the years people, the next hot sector is whether that was IB or consulting or startups or VC and whatever it is nowadays. I don't even know, but I think there's a ton of mimetic desire around, and I think people should actually just go into VC if they are really, really, really passionate about investing, because it is not the same as, building a company, for instance, right? You need that investing interest. You need to, get a kick out of thinking about investing also. And of course you need to get a kick out also like thinking about technology and startups and tech software or whatever it is. But if you're the type of person who wants to dive really, really deep and just like understand every inch of every, a particular niche, whatever, maybe you're better suited to be a founder. And as a VC, you need to live with that. You have breadth over depth, maybe, but that like some stuff about some stuff, but you're definitely not the smartest in the room when you're talking to the founders. And so I think, calibrate for what you want to, what sort of personality you have in that, and also what you want to achieve. I think going into VC early is definitely good if you want to maximize the rate of learning across industries. And then, you can always transition out to start a company. I think that's a good way to do it. It's also a good way to go the other direction of starting a company and then transitioning into VC. I think that way is actually harder for people, because if you first have been in startups for a long time and, being used to ship stuff and seeing your results the day after you have done something, that's not what you're getting in VC. You have to wait half a decade or a decade plus to actually see if you're any good at what you're doing as a VC. So that's a very different mindset that you need to understand. So pick your path with that in mind, I think. So I'm good at the moment here at byFounders.
So Martin, looking back at your own journey now, having been, years in VC and a lot of experience on your back, what advice would you give to yourself now, looking back, or kind of to other entrepreneurs in similar positions, having seen what you have seen now?
I would not give that many advice to entrepreneurs for having been a VC. I think the number one advice is that you should understand, you should have, just as you have like product market fit and you have, company market fit, you also have company investor fit. And you need to understand, like, are you building for a unicorn outcome, or are you building to build a great business that probably not need venture capital? I think there is a big discrepancy between a lot of the startups trying to raise venture capital that would be way better off doing something else. So that's one thing I always talk with founders of when they're starting a company is just, what are your aspirations and where do you want this company to be? And do you understand that if you go the venture route, you need to build like a very, very large company in fairly short time span, and that's not something many people are able to do. On the other question, in terms of if I wanted to go back, I think I always had like an entrepreneurial drive, but at the moment I get that saturated in building a fund and a firm, and we are still super early in our journey, and we have a ton of things we want to do. So So I'm good at the moment here at byFounders.
So obviously, Martin, we've touched upon it multiple times today already. You have cracked some sort of a code when it comes to fast track in VC, in both kind of successes and the road to partnership. What do you think has been a surprisingly important skill in your day-to-day work that isn't necessarily obvious to the rest of us in still in pure mortal positions in associates?
Willingness to look stupid. I think that's, you need to be, you need to, I know it's like a meme these days, but you need to be somewhat contrarian and be also, able to put your belief out there and just like act on it. And maybe you end up looking stupid and maybe you don't, right? But take the lead and put yourself out there. I think that's helpful. At least when you're in an environment where that is encouraged.
You've been dropping, advice bombs throughout the podcast. What would be, final piece of advice you'd give to the new VC?
I think if you really want to be a VC and you want to be that long term, I think you always should study the history of venture capital and just like from the get-go, basically learn from the mistakes of others, but make sure to make your own mistakes on the way as well. Learn best practices, but be willing to like diverge and break away from them also as a consequence of what I just said by, willingness of looking stupid. So don't do as every other one is doing, but understand, what is the best practices and why are they best practices and why would they not be in this exact case that you're, in specifically. So I'm a big fan of a Bill Gurley quote. I think it goes something like good judgment comes from experience and experience comes from bad judgment. So you sort of have to, going back to looking stupid eventually, that happens to all of us.
Yeah, that's a brilliant note to end on and a piece of wisdom we can all take from this. So thank you very, very much for joining us today and everything that you bestowed upon us. So fantastic. Thank you, Martin.
Thanks a lot for having me. Super fun.
Thank you for listening to this special episode on the European VC. If you love our show, join our community by subscribing at eu.vc.